Hello, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, good. So let's just begin. Um, we start from the art of persuasion. Art of persuasion. Um, as you can see, from what I have on the screen, you can see that the for any leader who want to be successful must be very good with the element of the uh, art of persuasion. So those elements include an understanding of people. Then it also includes the effective use of words. And then, of course, the ability to manage conflict. These are the three things that you must master if you want to be a successful leader. Understanding of people, the effective use of words, and the ability to manage conflict. So let us look at these things one by one. So we'll start from the call the first one is an understanding of people. Yeah, it is very important. Uh, understanding people, understanding others requires sensitivity. You know, understanding other people requires sensitivity to their needs. So the ability to see things from the other person's view is important in all human relations, especially in leadership. So I'll use an example with Lyndon Johnson. So America's 36th president, of course, you all know about him, Lyndon Johnson, um, recognize that people do what they do for their own reasons. So, in other words, uh, he accomplished his goals by helping others accomplish their own goals. So, this explains why explains his ability to persuade people to do what he wanted them to do. For example, after taking office, Lyndon Johnson won the passage of a major tax cut. Then he also won the passage of the Clean Air Act and the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So these are things that he was able to do because he used a strategy of recognizing that people do what they want, do what they do for their own reason. So he was able to recognize what they need and give it to them. And then he was able that made him to achieve all these big goals. So after the 1964 election, Lyndon Johnson passed even more sweeping reforms, and such as the Social Security Amendment of 1965 that created two government uh, run healthcare insurance or programs, the Medicare and Medicaid. These are some of the achievements that Lyndon Johnson made because he understands or see things from the other people's views, and then give them what they want, and then they'll help you to pass the bill. They help you to pass the bill, landmark bills that really changed America. So that's what you can do by understanding the people. Now, another one is I will give you an example. Another example is Napoleon. Napoleon, I'm sure you must have heard of Napoleon. He's a French general. Um, Simply put, Napoleon was a master of persuasion because he understands people. So that's the main thing. He understand people. So the secret of his leadership was simple. He first determined what people wanted most. Then he did everything he could in his power to help them to get it. That is the key to his success as a leader. So he figured out what people need, and then he did everything he can to provide those needs. Okay, most of us take just the opposite track. We first decide what we want, then we try to persuade others to want the same thing as badly as we do. Which can make some of us bad leaders if we take that kind of position. Now, when the army, I'll give some examples here for Napoleon. When his army was half starved, Napoleon promised them food in exchange for victory. So that time it was that what was his use. It's no longer like these days where we have food everywhere. Those days, if you don't have food, you don't have food. So he promised them that a win, they have more than plenty of food. And sometimes when his army were homesick and they are thinking of deserting, Napoleon appealed to their pride by asking them how they wanted to return home. Do they want to return home as heroes who conquered their enemies, or do they want to return home with their heads tucked between their legs? So that was another motivation for them to stay put. Now, when the soldiers were fighting in Egypt under the pyramids, Napoleon appealed to their sense of history. He said 40 centuries of are looking down upon you. That means the pyramids are something that have existed for up to 40 centuries. Is a big, I would say, significant piece of history. So he was telling them, there are 40 centuries of people looking at you, performance. Okay. Now, the helping others to achieve their goal. That is the essence of the leadership, and that is what Napoleon did. So by the time he was starting, Napoleon ruled France. He remade France and much of Europe in 15 years in power, and proved himself to be one of the history's greatest military commanders. So, so the bottom line is that he helped others to get their goals, and that is what made him great. So if you look at Napoleon photo, I have it here. You can see him, and naturally you will see that the rumor then was that Napoleon was exceptionally short, and then because Napoleon was not, he actually wasn't exceptionally short. He was 5 feet and 6 inches actually, and then slightly taller than the average Frenchman of that day, average Frenchman of that day. So it was the English, I would say the British, who alleged he was 5 feet 2 inches, and they believe that he was looking for power to compensate for being short. That's how they put it. So supporting the observation that who wins the wars, write history. Yep, that's what this is. Who win the war, write history. But you can see Napoleon is just like as tall as any Frenchman of his day. So what is our takeaway here? It means that in spite of all that, Napoleon was able to give people what they want, so that they give him back what he wants. And because of that, he was able to consolidate and institutionalize many reforms of the French Revolution. Okay. Now, not only that, we have that he really made a name for himself in history, Napoleon. Now, the second thing we look at the effective use of words. Effective use of words. So now, the conviction of a leader converts I mean, the conviction, that is what he was able to, message he was able to pass across. The conviction of a leader, that especially in times of crisis, the conviction of a leader that a leader conveyed by his or her words. I said his or her because we have females in leadership position as well. So that in the time of crisis, the conviction of the leader, the one that is conveyed by his or her words, can be a determining factor in the course of events. Yes, that is true. For example, consider the tenacity of the English people, especially during the World War II. And imagine, even though they are inspired, I would say that, let me put it this way. If you can imagine how tenacious they were, it is because they were inspired by a determined Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill was the Prime Minister of Britain during the Second World War. So, who braced Britons to their task. Churchill told his people, that even though all of the Europe may have failed to the German onslaught, they will continue to fight. I mean, even though it is possible for them, but they will continue to fight. So I will say it the way he said it in his words. And I have it written here as well, so you can see it. We shall not flag or fail. We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in the seas. We shall fight in the ocean. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the field and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. That's what he told them. So he was giving them all kind of motivational, making all kind of motivational statements. That is one of the. I mean, of course, at the same time, giving his soldiers what they need to fight. And eventually, they were able to defeat Germany by working together with their allies. Okay. So, which leads us to the another example is which is President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine. So, from the way he speaks, his thoughts motivated his army, and they were able to resist the world's strongest, one of the strongest power in the world, which is Russia. So, what a natural question to ask is that what made President Zelensky a good leader? Well, it is very clear, obvious to all of us that he was he proved himself a good leader. What the reason is he's incredibly difficult, and during the incredibly difficult time, what did he do to make him that strong? First is that he is a very good communicator. Yes, was a very good communicator indeed. He's very good in describing what is going on, what is happening, and what, as a nation, they need to do a successful to be successful in the war. Another one is that he clearly demonstrates self-confidence. Yes, he did very well. He knows that the role he needs to play, and he's playing it. He is willing to be very direct. He's willing to be very direct and both with both the adversaries, the enemy, and then be also good with the senior folks in Europe and in the United States. So he knew that he needed them, and so he was confident enough to communicate with them throughout the war, which is still ongoing. Now, next one is that in terms of genuine humility, Mr. President Zelensky is, even though he is a strong personality, he is strong personally, and knows he can get a lot of drone. So he's I mean, he was humble enough. I would say humility. He's I would say let me put it this way. He is a strong personality and knows he can get a lot done by, by being humble. So he has enough humility to realize that uh, there's no scenario in which he's going to get through the war without a lot of help from NATO and the United States. So he was humble enough to realize that and then to continue to push in a very respectful way. So as I say, more effective use of word is also a factor when it comes to the art of persuasion. I will put it, let me check this notes. Mr. Godfrey, Geoffrey, what is the names? Okay, Godfrey. Just 1 minute. Bia. Bia Mungu. Okay. All right. I will continue. So this is more effective use of words. So Zelensky, vocabulary, clarity, and eloquence can be used to persuade others to take action, especially in difficult times. So leaders can inspire the phrase. And I give more examples of those phrases here on the screen. As you can see here, you have of the people, by the people, for the people. This is by Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, who was the former president of the United States. You have the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, which is from Franklin Roosevelt. Then his third one says, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. You have Jeff Kennedy that said it. So these motivational words are really etched in the memories of the Americans. Another thing that we need to know is that in times of crisis, especially, the conviction of a leader conveyed to his or her words, that there's a conviction a leader conveyed to his or her words, conveyed in his or her words, can be a determining factor in the course of the event. So the way you present your word, the way you can use your words, have a lot of things to do with respect to getting things done. I mean, moving your people who are under you to get things done. That's the simplest way to put it. Which leads us to rhetoric, rhetoric. So when you say rhetoric, we are referring to the use of language to influence others. I know that this happens all the time. Trump used rhetoric to influence Americans to vote him in 2026, even though at that time nobody thought he would win, but he was able to use rhetoric to ginger people to come and vote for him. So rhetoric is basically the art of argument, and the result of is the persuasion. So it's the art of argument, and the result is persuasion. So the ancient Greek considered rhetoric to be an essential skill of leadership. So they place it at the center of innovation, and the rhetorics taught them how to speak and write persuasively. Then after the Greeks invented rhetorics, it was helped by Roman emperors or Roman orators that really helped in making it grow in, I believe you understand what I mean by growing. So after the Greek invented rhetorics, it helped Roman orators like Julius Caesar and Cicero. They all use rhetorics, and even it even inspires Shakespeare. So you can see how powerful this is. And Shakespeare is read by most everybody because of uniqueness of his work at the time. So American founding fathers studied rhetoric, and they are used to its principle in writing the Constitution. So here is a few takeaways we can have here. I might say that the three issues of rhetoric, and of course persuasion are blame, values, and then choice. So three I would say issues of rhetoric or persuasion. Call them the blame, the values, and the choice. So the blame, the values, and the choice, and then all these are time graded in the past, present, and future. Let's see if you can look at them one by one. Blame is about who is responsible. So we all know that from that name blame, we know that it has something to do with who was responsible. Values are about what is right, and choice is about choosing or deciding in the future. So let's look at this one by one. I'll start by looking at what Aristotle says about it. So according to Aristotle, well, let me put it this way. Aristotle thought that a speaker's ability to speak or a speaker's ability to persuade the audience is based on how well the speaker appeals to the audience in three different areas: logos, ethos, and pathos. So these are all Greek words, and because there are three of them, which is logos, ethos, and pathos, and they have and above that, say blame. We have blame, values, and choice. So because of that, three of them, we can see that that these appeals form what later become known in rhetoric as the rhetorical triangle. So according to Aristotle, under his rhetorics, the methodical core of Aristotle's rhetorics is the theorem that there are three technical pistes, that is persuaders, or means of persuasion. There are three of them. The first one is the character, which is ethos of the speaker. And the second one is the emotional state, pathos of the hearer. And the argument is, means the logos itself. So at this point, we are trying to look at persuasion through the character of the speaker. But before I do that, does anybody have a question for me? Any question?
No.
Hello, scholars. Any question? No question? Okay, good.
No.
All right. Okay, let's look at the persuasion through the character of the speaker. So with regard to the speaker, persuasion is accomplished whenever the speech is heard in such a way as to render the speaker worthy of credence. So in other words, what I'm trying to say here that I'm going to say it based on what Aristotle said. Aristotle said that people follow the trustworthy speaker more easily and more quickly than on almost all subjects and completely on its affairs. Completely so in affairs in which there are not exact criteria to decide case, for example, but only wavering opinions. That's what he says, that people follow trustworthy speaker more easily and more quickly on almost all subjects, and completely so in affairs in which there are not exact criteria to decide the case. But anyway, what are we trying to say here? The bottom line is that this statement from Aristotle, from including the one that say that persuasion is accomplished whenever speech is heard in such a way that to render the speaker worthy of credence. So based on these two things, we can say that we can infer two of them as like might be taken to mean that in the absence of other criteria to decide the case, the audience will form the second order, what we call the second order judgments, that suggestions put forward by a credible speaker are themselves received as trustworthy and acceptable. So at this point, we are ready to look at the persuasion through emotion and the of the hearer. So with regard to the hearer here, persuasion comes from about or is about whatever the hearer are led by, the speech to feel, to feel a certain amount of passion or a certain emotion that in turn has an impact on the judgment they are going to make. So basically, we say that the underlying assumption of this persuasive technique is that people's emotion are states broadly conceived. People's emotions or their emotional states. Okay, I will simplify it. Let me put it this way. The underlying assumption of these persuasive techniques, through the emotions of the hearer, is that people's emotional states are broadly conceived. That is, whether they actually undergo episode of emotion or not, and what kind of emotion they feel. So that their emotional state, are conceived. The way it is conceived makes a difference for the formation of the judgments they are about to pass. So that means that it basically seems that the speaker has to assume or arouse emotion exactly because emotion have the power to modify our judgments. So have to figure out a way to arouse emotion. So in other words, to a junior, I'll give an example. To a judge or a juror who is in a friendly mood, the person about whom he or she is going to judge seem not to do wrong, or only in a small way. So because of the mood of the jury, you might decide to be kind of lenient on whoever is the defendant. But a juror or judge who is very angry, the defendants we might get the opposite effect, So have this this will lead us to our next category, which is persuasion through the argument itself. So with regard to the subject of the speech, the subject in which the speech is about, persuasion comes about through arguments. That is, by providing or similarly providing that something is the case. So in other words, most probably I would say this means that that to take up the idea that people are most easily persuaded when they suppose something have been proven, then they can become persuaded. Yes, that is correct. So this leads us to the next thing, which is the vehicles of communication. Remember, all this has to do with the art of persuasion. The art of persuasion is where all these things can fit them. Then the vehicles of communication is another concept that we need to be familiar with. So that according to what I have here, leaders must master. They have a need, well, I'll say that they are required to master the vehicles of communication in their time. So, in other words, um, a challenge of today's leadership, I'll say this today leadership, a challenge of today's leaders is the effective use of both the old and the new vehicles of communication. That's the main challenges of this. And those vehicles of communication, when we say vehicle of communication, especially the modern day vehicles of communication, we are thinking about personal and public speaking, written documents, radio, television, telephone, the electronic communication on the internet world, and the social media. Okay, so that's what I mean when I say that the vehicles of communication. So, and that, like I said, the challenge of today's leaders is the effective use of both the old and new vehicles of communication, including these things and this item that I mentioned. Okay, so they must expand and their time and effort to communicate effectively using these tools, as well as using social media tools like texting and tweeting. So they will have to be that way. Now, I would say that Franklin Roosevelt mastered the radio, for example. So after he mastered it, it gave him a lot of leverage with respect to making people listen to him or follow his directives. I remember those days, I read about it in the book where he has to have something like a media chat with the American people on radio. People will ask him questions and he answered. Almost, I think it was almost, I forgot the exact date. He has it every day. Not every day, every week, I believe, or every evening. I recommend that you look it up. But online that he was able to use the radio to persuade people, to keep them informed about what is going on, and to create a kind of level of trust among them. How about this person, JFK? This one is more recent than Roosevelt. Judge Kennedy. John Kennedy, who used to be the president of the United States in the 60s. Yeah, he was able to galvanize the whole country and made them, draw them to himself. How about Lincoln? I'll make more elaboration with Lincoln because his own is the newspapers. So his ability to manage the media of the day, which is newspapers, help him influence the public opinion to preserve the Union and abolish slavery. So Lincoln had both the favored allies and dedicated antagonists, but he was able to manage them all by using the newspaper, of course, with other things, or the rhetoric characteristics. So the main problems that the main takeaway we'll get here is that from this Lincoln example is that he cultivated the press through personal relations. Cultivated the press through personal. In fact, in town after town, he called upon editors, putting his feet on their desk and setting them at case with his stories, so that he also dazzled the editors with his political knowledge, conveyed his idea, and led each premises having combated a stranger, and also a friend by he continued that way, and he was able to achieve his goal. So that by 1959, Lincoln's influence used through the press, where the press had become the major leadership strength that helped him to win the war, the Civil War. Next is the ability. That's the third one. Ability to manage conflict. Yeah. Now, as you know, conflict, we can't help it. Conflict is inevitable. Yeah. The effective leader knows that conflict is Every effective leader knows that conflict is an inevitable fact of life, that no two people will see eye to eye on every issue of all time in all the time. So, and the effective leader also know that what is needed is creative conflict, not destructive conflict. Okay. So conflicting purposes and conflicting personalities are inevitable in dealing with the people, and they are a part of the what I'll call the normal functioning of a healthy group. Simply put, without knowledge and skill in managing conflict, then it makes sense to say that the leader will fail to achieve the goal of the organization. So let's look at some of the key takeaways here for this one. We have that according to research, leaders can spend more than 25% of their time dealing with conflict. Example, like things like conflicting goals between the individuals and the groups, disputes over scarce resources and rewards, and strong differences in beliefs and values, and arguments over policies and decisions. So, I mean, these things, you cannot avoid them, but if you can manage it, you'll be, as a leader, you'll be good. Otherwise, if you can't manage it, that means the conflict has the potential to destroy opportunities and relationships that already have. So, natural question now, because what are the strategies for dealing with conflict? Well, there are many, but the few ones are here that are directed to the leader. It says, recognize that conflict is a natural, indeed, natural, is a, you have to recognize that it happens. So conflict is a natural, that's the first one way of saying it, which means that nature uses conflict as an agent for change. So creating beautiful beaches and canyons and fields, all these things have to do with conflict. So conflict is natural. That's one thing to recognize. One of the ways of dealing with it, recognize that it is natural. The second one is that we can view conflicts as either a problem or an opportunity. So we can dwell in the negative and accentuate the positive, or accentuate the positive. That's where you can either dwell with negative or you can accentuate the positive when it comes to managing conflict. So by choosing optimism over pessimism, we can be energized by events and focus in our efforts. So that dealing with conflict is not always about who is right or who is wrong. Okay, it is more about what different people need and want. So if everyone's needs are satisfied reasonably and everyone's wants are considered fairly, then conflict can be a gift of energy, can be a gift of energy that can result in a new and better condition for everyone. So now we have less than 2 minutes. We cannot achieve much with that. I recommend that you read this chapter for this book, and then do the homework. Then I will see you next week. Okay? Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, have a good night. Go ahead. All right. So see you guys next week.